Their Excellencies Christine Carla Kangaloo, ORTT, President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, and Kerwin Garcia, SC, First Gentleman. Please be seated. On behalf of their Excellencies, I welcome you all to the President's House. A most special welcome to the National Awards recipients, their Excellencies' most honored guests, here to receive the recognition of a grateful nation. You are among the finest examples of citizenship, and we salute you and the invaluable contributions you have made to Trinidad and Tobago. Before we begin the distribution of tonight's awards, please allow me to note the return of the National Awards to this nation's premier national residence, the President's House. This edifice was the site of the first ever National Awards ceremony back in 1969 and for many subsequent years. Its closure for renovations in 2010 led to the National Awards ceremonies being held at alternative locations for a number of years. The 2020 and 2021 ceremonies were held here in 2021 due to the pandemic, but social distancing regulations meant that only the awardees could be accommodated. In 2022, the awards were again held off-site. Upon assuming the presidency earlier this year, Her Excellency Christine Carla Kangaloo, ORTT, was determined to return the National Awards ceremony to its birthplace. And so here we are, ladies and gentlemen, upon the express invitation of the President at her residence, the President's House, to honor and celebrate our 2023 National Award recipients. In order to further Her Excellency's expressed desire to promote and advance the development of the young people of the nation, this year, Her Excellency is introducing the reading of the biographies of the awardees by students of schools from across the nation. It is now my pleasure to introduce these students, whose voices you will hear during the investiture. Please hold your applause until all their names are called. Aaron Bali, Shiva Boys Hindu College. Jonah Bujarat, Queens Royal College. Jelana Caesar, Bishop's High School, Tobago. Akiba Cooper, Cohen Hamilton Secondary. Andrew Debedine, Astor Boys College, San Fernando. Carissa Gomes, Point Fortin East Secondary. Lyndon Herrera, Holy Cross College, Arima. Sade Joseph, Pleasantville Secondary. Joanna Lexi Mohammed, Rio Claro West Secondary. Teddy Junior Mohammed, Hillview College, Tunapuna. Kyra Samuel, El Dorado East Secondary. Brianna Simon, Southeast Port of Spain Secondary. Anderson Sonny, Miracle Ministries Pentecostal High. Elisha Williams, Couva East Secondary. And Kellys York, Toko Secondary. Thank you very much, students. I will now invite the aide-de-camp to Her Excellency, Major Nigel Paris, to commence the investiture.
Thank you, Master of Ceremonies. Ladies and gentlemen, Her Excellency the President will now hold an investiture at which will be presented to recipients the insignia of the national awards made by the President on the advice of the Honorable Prime Minister on the occasion representative of the 47th anniversary of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago and the celebration of the 54th anniversary of the National Awards Ceremony. The Order of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago may be awarded for distinguished and outstanding service to the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. The Order of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago is awarded to Professor Emeritus Clement Imbert, University Professor, Mechanical Metallurgical Engineer, the University of the West Indies, in the spheres of innovation, steel pan technology, education, and culture and the arts.
Professor Clement Imbert currently serves at the University of the West Indies as University Professor Emeritus in Mechanical Metallurgical Engineering. As part of both the engineering and education fraternity, he was able to use his knowledge to assist in securing accreditation for the local engineering fraternity. He has worked on several boards, including the University of Trinidad and Tobago, the Caribbean Industrial Research Institute, and the Accreditation Council of Trinidad and Tobago. Professor Imbert has contributed significantly to the development of the steel pan. He is co-founder of the UE Steel Pan Development Center and a member of the team that developed the G-Pan.
Professor John Agard, Executive Director, Institute for Climate Change and Resilient Development, the University of the West Indies, in the spheres of environment, global climate smart, and biodiversity protection.
Professor John Agard is the Executive Director of the Global Institute for Climate Smart and resilient development at the University of the West Indies. His research is widely recognized regionally and internationally, from natural resources management, water quality, marine and terrestrial ecology, to the impact of climate change on natural and human systems. Professor Agard served as co-chair to a group of independent scientists appointed by the United Nations Secretary-General to draft the second quadrennial Global Sustainable Development Report in 2023. His vision is that of a society which recognizes other forms of wealth, including biodiversity, that exists beyond the limit of GDP.
Professor Padmanathan Umaharan, Director of the Cocoa Research Center of the University of the West Indies, in the spheres of science and agricultural development.
Professor Padmanathan Umaharan is the Director of the Cocoa Research Center at the University of the West Indies. As Director, Professor Umaharan oversaw the conversion of the Cocoa Research Unit into a full-fledged campus center. His research projects resulted in genetic approaches to overcome losses associated with disease and improving tolerance to climate change. This has led the way to the development of the first molecular breeding program in cocoa, a global DNA fingerprinting service, a quality certification service, and the improvement of cocoa quality. Through his efforts, the University of the West Indies has now been named by the European Union as the top cocoa research institution globally.
The Shikonia Medal may be awarded for long and meritorious service tending to promote national welfare or strengthen community spirit in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. The Shikonia Medal Gold is today awarded to the following persons: Dr. Bruce Paddington, retired, in the spheres of media and film industry.
Dr. Bruce Paddington is the founder and co-owner of Banyan Productions, Trinidad and Tobago. Banyan is an award-winning, pioneering media production and consultancy company, producing media on cultural, social, and developmental issues. Dr. Paddington formed the Mokarapo Schools Community Project, providing audiovisual materials by utilizing the production facilities of Banyan. The project was so successful that it was absorbed into the television and audiovisual unit of the Ministry of Education. Mr. Paddington produced hundreds of educational audiovisual materials, including programs on literary figures such as Derek Walcott, along with groundbreaking recordings of interviews with vintage artists such as Growling Tiger. Dr. Paddington has also trained aspiring filmmakers and provided a platform upon which they can have their work shown and developed through workshops and seminars at film festivals.
Dr. Jacqueline Sharp, medical practitioner, specialty psychiatry, child and adolescent psychiatry, in the spheres of medicine psychiatry.
Dr. Jacqueline Sharp is currently a consultant child and adolescent psychiatrist, Ministry of Health, Trinidad and Tobago, and director of the Child Guidance Clinic. Dr. Sharp has been a pioneer in providing psychiatric and psychological services to children and their families in Trinidad and Tobago. She established the Child Psychiatry Service of Trinidad and Tobago and heads the only full-time child guidance clinic, providing evaluation and treatment for children, adolescents, and their families. In addition to direct clinical services, she provides indirect service, which includes liaison work with primary, secondary, and special schools, children's homes, as well as the Family Court and the Student Support Services Division of the Ministry of Education.
Mr. Langston Roach, Executive Chairman, Langston Roach Industries Limited, in the spheres of business and community.
Mr. Langston Roach is a past director of the Trinidad and Tobago Manufacturers Association. As a past director of the TTMA, Mr. Roach brought valuable insights and expertise to the organization. He was always willing to share his knowledge and experience, acting as a mentor to many small to medium-sized enterprises. Even as a current member, Mr. Roach continues to show his commitment to the TTMA and the wider community through his sponsorship of numerous events and initiatives. Mr. Roach has been described as a consummate entrepreneur, philanthropist, mentor, and patriot.
Mr. Siyunarayan Prasad Kosal, Executive Director, in the spheres of entrepreneurship and philanthropy.
Mr. Siyunarayan Prasad Kosal is the Executive Director of Kosal's Construction Company. Mr. Kosal has successfully led his team to be recognized as one of the leading construction companies or contractors in Trinidad and Tobago. In his efforts to honor his corporate social responsibility, he continues to partner with communities, schools, and learning institutions, and by extension, facilitated ventures geared to assist in the development of the social fabric. To that end, he has collaborated especially with the mission of Habitat for Humanity and the Salvation Army.
The Shakonia Medal Silver is today awarded to the following persons: Mr. Ainsworth Mohammed, retired, in the spheres of culture and the arts and steel band management.
Mr. Ainsworth Mohammed, as the leader of Exodus Steel Orchestra since 1999, has led the band to success at national, regional, and international panorama and music festival competitions. The steel band has toured extensively to all continents of the globe, preaching the gospel of Pan. Mr. Mohammed has also established a junior school extracurriculars for 100 students ranging in age from 5 to 21. He has designed and singularly managed the upgrade of Exodus Pan Theatre in 2021-2022. Mr. Mohammed is among the longest-serving managers in the steel band movement and is often hailed in steel band circles as the best administrator in the industry. The band is known for its wholesome discipline and community spirit. But more than that, Mr. Mohammed has expanded his expertise to other steel orchestras in being a founding director of the International Steel Band Foundation, which produces the Big Five Steel Band concerts.
Dr. Calvin Inalsing, posthumously, former medical doctor in the spheres of medicine, sports, and philanthropy. His daughter, Ms. Shavana Inalsing, will accept the award on his behalf.
Dr. Calvin Inalsing was a former president of the Princess Elizabeth Home. Under his stewardship, the home went from a facility that encompassed not just the medical and physical needs of the children, but also their educational needs. Dr. Inalsing was also a medical director and member of the Red Cross Society. He gave many years of voluntary service
and use his influence in the community to encourage others to offer their services. Dr. Inal Singh was an avid sportsperson and served as the team doctor for the Trinidad and Tobago national team at the Pan American Games, the Commonwealth Games, the Caribbean and Central American Games, and the 1984 Olympic Games in Los Angeles. Dr. Inal Singh served as the chairman of Trinidad and Tobago Boxing Board of Control from 1993 to 1996, and as a vice chairman of the Medical Advisory Committee of the World Boxing Association.
Mr. Carlos Hee Hong, Management Consultant in the sphere of energy.
Mr. Carlos Hee Hong joined the Economic Studies and Planning Unit of the Industrial Development Corporation in 1972, and between 1975 to 1978 served as the Chief Executive Officer and Coordinating Task Force that had responsibility for activities relating to development of the Point Lisa Industrial Estate. Following the investment decision of the Fur Train Project in 1978, Mr. Hee Hong returned to the energy sector operations, serving as the company's project coordinating officer during the engineering and construction period. He was appointed as the government representative of the Fur Train Technical Advisory Group, in which role he was able to successfully promote the early recruitment of nationals to fill positions.
Miss Francine Edwards, also known as Singing Francine, posthumously, former Calypsonian and historian in the spheres of culture and the arts. Her manager, Mrs. Cheryl Caraballo, will accept the award on her behalf.
Miss Francine Edwards, better known as Singing Francine, was well known in the Calypso arena, where she was able to hold her own and gain prominence in a male-dominated field. Over her 51-year career, Singing Francine used the medium of Calypso to champion the female cause in the Calypso arena, seeking to place women's issues on the front burner through the medium of Calypso. She was Calypso Queen in 1973, 1981, and 1983. Singing Francine also used her melodious voice to comment on other topical issues or to help her audience find a deeper meaning to life. Francine's style has always been to make her audience listen to her lyrics above the melody, even in her up-tempo calypsos, such as Calypso Fever and Cool It Down. There was always a storyline, the very essence of the art form.
Mr. George Leacock, radio station owner and manager in the spheres of sports, media.
Mr. George Leacock was tasked with setting up the first division of sport in Tobago. With limited resources over a 9-year period, his achievements included the creation of elite athlete programs at the division that led to the success of athletes across the island in national and international competitions. Mr. Leacock's combined experiences as a player, coach, and administrator with a special knack for event management has led to a series of appointments to execute large sporting events on the island. These include the opening of the Dwight York Stadium, the FIFA Under-17 World Cup, and the Carifta Games. The FIFA tournament received 39 and 40 possible points for event management. The Carifta Games, which Tobago managed on 6 weeks' notice after the original host defaulted, are on record as the first in history of the Games to run to a time script. Mr. Leacock was the chairman of a task force to deliver the Tobago leg of the 2023 Commonwealth Youth Games, which he achieved with resounding success.
Dr. Radhika Mahis, lecturer in the spheres of education, volunteerism, and advocacy.
Dr. Radhika Mahiz is a distinguished educator and historian. She has published extensively in the fields of history and specializing in Indian indentureship and the culture of Trinidad and Tobago. She has co-authored a textbook on Caribbean history, which is widely used throughout the Caribbean. Dr. Mahiz has also created opportunities for autistic children through the establishment of Rahul's Clubhouse, an autism center located on Gopal Grounds, Marabella. This is a one-of-a-kind center. Both autistic children and young adults can participate in sensory-oriented programs tailored to their specific needs. Dr. Mahiz founded an NGO solely based on a concept of volunteerism. She has focused on youth and so far has trained approximately 350 youth volunteers between the ages of 10 to 30 years to work with autistic persons.
Mr. Rishi Lakan, retired, in the spheres of culture and the arts.
In 1988, Mr. Lakan was elected as the first president of the St. James Working Council and successfully organized the very first St. James Children's Carnival, which is now in its 35th year. That same year, he designed and spearheaded the novel Christmas decorative street lighting across the Western Main Road in St. James, which was adopted by communities across Trinidad and Tobago. In 1993, as the councillor for the electoral district of St. James East on the Port of Spain City Council, Mr. Lakan was instrumental in the formation and establishment of the St. James Cookery Jose Association and successfully lobbied the Ministry of Community Development on behalf of the association. As a manager of his own retail business establishment in St. James in 1981, his mobilization of the St. James business community and his vibrant advocacy to call for the amendment to the ordinance for 24-hour shopping was successful and benefited the entire country. St. James is now known as the city that does not sleep.
Professor Suraj Pal Tilak Singh, medical doctor in the sphere of medicine.
Professor Suraj Pal Tilak Singh is a professor of medicine at the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine campus. He has played a key role in the development of national and regional monographs on a variety of diseases, including dengue, diabetes, obesity, and malaria. Professor Tilak Singh has received multiple accolades for his pioneering work and groundbreaking research in medical education locally with the introduction of the objective structured clinical examination in 1998. These examinations helped re-engineer the medical curriculum across the UE campuses and have been used as a template by other institutions as a model and example of clinical excellence, quality, and assurance.
The Hummingbird Medal may be awarded for loyal and devoted service in any field of human endeavor, or for gallantry or other humane action to the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. The Hummingbird Medal Gold is today awarded to the following persons: Mr. Azamuddin Khan, retired, in the sphere of community development.
Mr. Azamuddin Khan excelled in all levels of Scout leadership training, completing 3 levels of Scout leadership training, culminating in the award of his Wood Bad Badge, which is the highest level of Scout leadership training. Mr. Khan gave back his knowledge and experience to the youth of Trinidad and Tobago for a further 20 years by joining the national training team. Mr. Khan demonstrated resilience, durability, dedication, and all the components of good management. Mr. Khan rose to the top of Scouting to be the National Scout Commissioner in charge of Scouting in Trinidad and Tobago and held that portfolio for 6 years.
Mr. Azim Bassarat, President, Trinidad and Tobago Cricket Board, Vice President, Cricket West Indies, in the spheres of sports and cricket administration.
Mr. Azim Bazarat has fostered and grown youth development cricket programs at every age level. He has contributed to the expansion of women's cricket development, assisting in building girls' participation at the various schools and national levels. He has reached out to rural communities by implementing cricket caravans to geographical areas such as Toco, Cedros, and Tobago to unearth new talent. He has been successful in transforming Trinidad and Tobago's cricket board into a modern organization by introducing up-to-date technology and cricket techniques. Under his tenure, international players such as Kyron Pollard, Dwayne Bravo, Sunil Narain, Nicholas Puran, and Anisa Mohammed have come to the forefront.
Mrs. Carol Ann Birchwood James, businesswoman in the sphere of tourism.
Mrs. Caroline Birchwood James has spent 33 years in the tourism sector in Tobago. Mrs. James was president of the Tobago Hotel and Tourism Association from 2007 to 2011 and vice president from August 2011 to March 2023. Mrs. James has served as a member of the Tourism Development Company from 2011 to 2015, serving as a member of the Finance Committee and the marketing representative on the board. She also served as a member of the Tobago Standing Committee, which was established to increase visitor arrivals on the islands and to address the impact on Tobago's tourism and its stakeholders. During her tenure, the Tobago Hotel and Tourism Association started its own road shows to Trinidad. She was a fierce advocate for tourism stakeholders, and her contribution was recognized by the state agencies in Tobago.
Shehan Marva John Logan, social worker in the spheres of community development, activism, and social work.
Shehan Marva John Logan, also known as Sister Hanifa, is a social worker, mediator, youth and committee advocate, martial arts practitioner, and a social change agent. Her passion and devotion for people led to the birth of the Raidan Dojo Empowerment Center in 2013. Shehan Marva has developed Raidan Sports Plus model, an innovative cognitive behavior modification approach that uses martial arts as a vehicle for change. Shehan Marva was very instrumental in establishing a platform for Muslim sisters called Sister Sister, which seeks to address everyday issues such as domestic violence, mental health, finances, and education. She has also been providing female migrants and locals with entrepreneurial and soft skills training through her Support, Educate, Empower Women program for the last 6 years.
Mr. Reynald Howard, retired, in the spheres of culture and the arts.
Mr. Reynald Howard, as a tent manager, owner, provided opportunities for local composers and performers to present their work to local and international audiences. His purchase of SEMP record pressing plants in the 1980s significantly reduced the time and cost of record production for Trinidad and Tobago's recording artists. As a founding member of the Copyright Organization of Trinidad and Tobago, Mr. Howard facilitated access of the nation's music creators to protection of their work and receipt of royalties due to them. Mr. Howard is a pioneer of Parang Soca, now an established genre of music. His recording and distribution of Daisy Vozer's Parang Queen introduced the world to the music of Trinidad and Tobago's greatest exponent of traditional Parang music.
Mr. Richard Escalante, retired, in the sphere of education.
Mr. Richard Escalante taught public sector officers at the Central Training Unit, Ministry of Public Administration from 1993 to 1998 and has rendered 30 years of service to the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine, teaching e-government and public information systems at the undergraduate and postgraduate programs. Since 2006, he has also taught e-governance for small developing states at Cave Hill. He is the author of several peer-reviewed articles and 6 books on the history of media in the oil industry, telecommunications, and socio-military history, all spheres of study which have previously not been written about extensively. He is currently the 2018 recipient of a First-Time Author Award from NALIS and is currently the consultant on the history of colonial radio.
Mrs. Rukmini Hulas Bipath, retired, in the spheres of culture and education.
Ms. Rukmini Hulas Bipath has been involved in music and culture for over 6 decades. As she became more involved in culture, she was called upon to assist in Mahasabha Hindu schools across Trinidad in training students for the festival of Bal Vikas Vihar. She has dedicated her life to serving schools and communities across the nation. Ms. Hulas Bipath has published 4 books on Indo-Trinidadian religious celebrations, including recordings of traditional music and songs, and she was requested to teach these traditional songs to Mandir throughout Trinidad. For the 50th Independence celebration in Trinidad, Ms. Hulas Bipath composed a special nation-building song which is still played at several venues at Independence.
Mr. Samuel Badri, Curriculum Officer, Sports Broadcaster, in the spheres of sport and education.
Mr. Samuel Badri was a former #1 ranked 2020 bowler in the world. He was a member of the West Indies World Cup winning teams 2012 and 2016. Mr. Badri was the Assistant Secretary to the West Indies Cricket Board from September 2010 to 2015. He was the players' representative to the board and conducted workshops with players to prepare them for post-cricket life, money management and reintegration into society, communications and public relations. Mr. Badri is the chairman of Badri's Academy of Sport Education and has been an educator for over 2 decades. He is the epitome of a role model and has demonstrated a commendable balance with sport and education and has excelled in both.
Mr. Wayne Bertrand, posthumously, retired former chairman in the spheres of energy and education. His niece, Mrs. Alicia Bertrand Bostic, will accept the award on his behalf.
Mr. Wayne Gerard Bertrand was a pillar of the energy industry for over 45 years, playing a pivotal role in shaping its direction, growth, and success to sustainable development. As President of Operations at the Petroleum Company of Trinidad and Tobago and its predecessor, Trintoc, Mr. Bertrand was instrumental in implementing innovative business initiatives and collaborations regionally and internationally. Mr. Bertrand played a critical role in the development of the country's health, safety, and environmental culture. As chairman of the Occupational Safety and Health Authority of Trinidad and Tobago.
The Hummingbird Medal Silver is today awarded to the following persons: Mr. Ashton Ford, retired, in the spheres of culture, community development, and education.
Mr. Ashton Ford was the chairman of the Sport and Carnival Committee in Arima and presided over the expansion of the borough from 1 square mile to 4, initiating major changes which contributed to the overall development of Arima. He was involved in the political sphere and served as parliamentary secretary in the Ministry of Works, Maintenance and Drainage, and in the Ministry of Public Utilities and Transport. Mr. Ford was also a journalist and worked with various media houses, including The Guardian and The Catholic News. He freelanced for radio stations and covered sports, culture, politics, and crime. In 2004, he was assigned to the Trinidad and Tobago High Commission in London as Public Affairs, Culture, and Tourism Attaché, a position he held for 6 years, working closely with the High Commissioner to promote Trinidad and Tobago in areas of trade, tourism, and culture.
Mr. Carl Berger, retired in the spheres of sport.
Mr. Carl Berger has spent most of his life in the sporting fraternity. He has worked as a sports master, secretary, public relations officer, vice chairman, vice president, and president, all tuned into furthering the interests of cricket in Trinidad and Tobago. As a member of the Trinidad and Tobago Cricket Board, he held, amongst other positions, vice chairman and secretary of the Southwest Zone. He has also served and continues as cricket administrator in promoting the sport of cricket in South Trinidad, notably with the Penal Sports Association and the South Zone Cricket Council of the Trinidad and Tobago Cricket Board in a volunteer capacity.
Dr. Daniel Parks, pastor, in the spheres of faith-based community work and social services.
Pastor Daniel Parks is an ordained minister of the gospel and a prison chaplain in the Trinidad and Tobago Prison Service. Pastor Parks has effected positive change in the lives of a countless number of persons with society and behind prison walls, bringing newfound hope and restoration to those who were thought to be beyond redemption. He is the founder and president of the Prison Fellowship in Trinidad and Tobago and has introduced a range of programs and initiatives designed to support the spiritual and emotional well-being of prisoners. Pastor Parks works as an appointed UN ambassador for peace, contributed to the ideology of protecting civilians, preventing conflict, and reducing violence.
Mr. Eric McCree, gym manager, in the spheres of community, youth, and national development.
Mr. Eric McCree believes that his purpose is to promote fitness and wellness in our youth, as he works personally with them to identify and maximize talent, academically and in athletics. Mr. McCree has been selected national coach 7 times. He has successfully coached athletes who have represented Trinidad and Tobago at least 55 times at various international games and mentored them to achieve academically. Many of the athletes under his guidance have succeeded at regional examinations. Even more noteworthy is the fact that Mr. McCree successfully helped 21 of his athletes achieve academic scholarships to local and foreign universities.
Mr. Harvey Boris, businessman, in the spheres of community service.
Mr. Harvey Boris has been championing national causes in mainstream and social media for the past 30 years. At present, he hosts two programs entitled The Hot Seat and I Love My Country, respectively. During his programs, he seeks to advocate for the development of a healthy lifestyle and the prevention of illnesses such as diabetes. He has established and resourced the Center for Justice, an NGO through which people obtain social, educational, legal, and/or financial aid and advice. Professionally, Mr. Boris has served his community as counselor in the Sawa-Laventille Regional Corporation, as a diplomat attached to the Trinidad and Tobago Consulate in Miami, USA, and an alderman in the Port of Spain City Corporation.
Imam Imtiaz Ali, posthumously, prison chaplain, Imam, licensed marriage officer, religious instruction teacher in the spheres of faith-based community work and social services. His widow, Ms. Shamaroon Hussein, will accept the award on his behalf.
Imam Imtiaz Ali was a prominent figure in the Muslim community in Trinidad and Tobago. In his role as the Imam of the Real Street Asja Masjid since 2000, he has been instrumental in promoting Islamic education and values, providing spiritual guidance and support to the Muslim community, and fostering interfaith dialogue and understanding. Through his leadership, the Real Street Asja Masjid has become a center for community development and outreach programs, including feeding the needy, providing disaster relief, and supporting educational initiatives. Imam Ali was also the president of the Sawa Business Association and worked closely with local government officials and other stakeholders to secure funding for a number of infrastructure projects, including road repairs, sidewalk improvements, and the installation of streetlights, laying the foundation for further economic growth and development.
Mr. Jim Phillip, retired, in the spheres of culture and the arts.
Mr. Jim Phillip innovated the steel pan stand and the steel pan rack by making them collapsible. He innovated the tenor pan by replacing the original skirting with flat iron. He invented the pan balancer, the pan note measurer, the pan tuning stand, and the nozzle squeezer. His work is exclusively produced in Trinidad and Tobago, yet they have a cultural impact on the rest of the world. Some people describe his innovations as having come from a genius or a scientist.
Mr. Kenneth Ferguson, founder and chairman, the Kenson Group, in the spheres of energy and national development.
Mr. Kenneth Ferguson found a place in the energy sector, having accepted a voluntary separation package from Amoco and founding Kenson Production Services Limited, a contracting company specializing in providing operations and maintenance services to energy companies in Trinidad and Tobago. They are widely acknowledged as a leading service provider within the energy sector. To Mr. Ferguson's mind, it was critical that this workforce be provided with every opportunity to gain the skills and certifications required to conduct their tasks with the strictest adherence to international best practices. From this, another respected entity arose, the Kenson School of Production Technology. Mr. Ferguson celebrates his 79th birthday today.
Pastor Wilma Kelly, Minister of the Gospel and licensed marriage officer in the spheres of faith-based community work and social services.
Pastor Wilma Kelly, an ordained minister of the gospel and a prisons chaplain in the Trinidad and Tobago Prison Service, has been able to effect positive change in the lives of many. The scope of Pastor Kelly's achievements encompasses her work as a pastoral counselor, a radio and television host, and as the founder of the Center of Restoration and the Way of Holiness Ministry. The center gives homeless people, alcoholics, drug addicts, and former inmates a place to stay, as well as support and resources to help them rebuild their lives. As a prison's chaplain, Pastor Kelly has provided spiritual guidance, counseling, and support to inmates, prison administratives, and operational staff. She has successfully rehabilitated and reintegrated numerous prisoners back into society, demonstrating the transformative power of faith in the lives of those she has touched.
The Hummingbird Medal Bronze is today awarded to Ms. Rachel Bagwindine, posthumously, former student in the sphere of gallantry. Her father, Mr. Kelvin Bagwindine, will accept the award on her behalf.
Ms. Rachel Bagwindine was 11 years old and lived in Freeport with her parents and her 3 siblings. Not everyone is built with a protective mechanism that puts the life of others before themselves. It is often a testament to the type of upbringing you have had and an inner resolve to be of service to others. When Rachel and her brother were confronted by a vicious animal, her first thought was to protect her brother and make the way clear for him to be safe while allowing herself to take the brunt of the vicious attack. Her brother survived, and unfortunately, she did not. For an 11-year-old to be so selfless certainly shows that she possessed a spark of the divine nurtured by her parents and leading to a place where it can only be remembered as wonderful, gracious, and kind.
The Public Service Medal of Merit may be awarded for outstanding and meritorious service to the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. The Public Service Medal of Merit Gold is today awarded to the following persons: Mr. Anthony Bartholomew, retired Permanent Secretary in the sphere of public service.
Mr. Anthony Bartholomew has an extensive public service career. His service records include Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Planning, Housing and the Environment, Ministry of Planning and Development, Ministry of National Security, Ministry of Public Utilities and the Environment, and Ministry of the Environment. After his retirement from the public service, Mr. Bartholomew continued to serve. He has been a coordinator and advisor in the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Marine Resources, a consultant for the Ministry of Finance, a consultant for the Inter-American Development Bank, and currently provides the service of advisor to the Ministry of Public Utilities.
Ms. Beverly Khan, consultant in the spheres of public policy and development planning.
Ms. Beverly Khan is an outstanding public servant with 33 years of dedicated service to the government and people of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Ms. Khan has served this country with distinction. She held various leadership positions, including that of Deputy Permanent Secretary. She also served as Trinidad and Tobago Councillor in the Office of the Executive Director for the Caribbean Constituency at the Inter-American Development Bank, Washington, D.C. Ms. Khan has been an invaluable resource to the public service, especially to permanent secretaries who have relied heavily on her technical expertise. Moreover, she has mentored and inspired a generation of public officers working with key stakeholders in the public and private sectors, and multilateral development banks in leveraging support for the country's development.
Mrs. Enid A. Zephyrin, retired, in the spheres of public service.
Ms. Enid Zephyrin is an outstanding public official who began her career as a clerical officer in 1973, eventually becoming an auditor and budget analyst in the Ministry for Tobago Affairs, Central Administrative Services, Tobago, and Tobago House of Assembly. From 1990 to 2012, she served as budget analyst, financial analyst, assistant director, and director economic management at the Ministry of Finance. After working with the World Bank in Washington, D.C. for 2 years, Ms. Zephyrin, a consummate citizen willing to serve the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, returned to the public service in the Ministry of Finance from 2016 to 2023 as the Director of Strategic Management and Execution.
Mrs. Gwendolyn Luby Snaggs, posthumously, former nurse in the sphere of public service health sector. Her widower, Mr. Everald Snaggs, will accept the award on her behalf.
Ms. Gwendolyn Luby Snaggs' employment in the service of Trinidad and Tobago began as a nurse, but she moved on to contribute to the decision-making process to further the cause of strengthening the population against the threats of diseases and viruses. In the early 1980s, Ms. Luby Snaggs became involved with the Public Service Association to address the needs of her colleagues. She became the nurses' representative at the PSA in 1985, and she rose to the first vice president in 1993. Her service to nurses of Trinidad and Tobago expanded to the Caribbean as she served on the executive of the Caribbean Nurses Organization from 2016 to the time of her passing in 2022.
Mr. Leslie Ruben Hoyt, retired, in the spheres of public service, sport, and physical education.
Mr. Leslie Ruben Hoyt has had a profound impact in the field of sports and physical education, the role for which he may perhaps be most well known is his function as physical trainer to the Trinidad and Tobago national under-20 team, which participated in the 5th Youth World Cup in Portugal in 1991. This team included Dwight York, Clayton Ince, and Angus Eve, who would go on to become future standouts at the senior level. Mr. Hoyt started as a teacher at the Couva Anglican Primary School in 1960, with subsequent appointments over the years at Presentation College, San Fernando, Corinth Teachers College, the University of the Southern Caribbean, the University of Trinidad and Tobago, and the University of the West Indies Open Campus, among others. He also held the post of physical education and Sport Officer 2 at the Ministry of Sport, Culture, and Youth Affairs. Mr. Hoyt's deepest and most profound impact, however, is unquestionably at the level of the individual, providing encouragement and inspiration to hundreds of young people.
The Public Service Medal of Merit Silver is today awarded to the following persons: Mr. John Lopez, retired, in the sphere of public service.
Prisons Supervisor Mr. John Lopez, retired, is an exceptional leader who has dedicated 35 years of his life to the Trinidad and Tobago Prison Service, rising to the rank of Prison Supervisor. He has contributed particularly in the area of prison healthcare services management. One of Mr. Lopez's earliest achievements was his involvement in the cadets at a junior level, where he later attained the rank of under-officer. He went on to form the 1st Cadet Unit in Brazil Secondary School and also worked with students at El Dorado East Secondary School. One of Mr. Lopez's most notable contributions to the Trinidad and Tobago Prison Service was managing the Health Services Unit, which provided health care to inmates and prison staff. Through his position in the unit, he developed key stakeholder partnerships, which allowed officers and inmates to receive additional healthcare services beyond the capacity of the prison service.
Mrs. Yasmin Rahman Singh, former principal in the sphere of public service.
Mrs. Yasmin Rahman Singh was principal of Asia Girls College, San Fernando from November 2007 to April 2023, transforming the college into a first-choice institution and one of the top-performing schools in the country. Under her leadership, the college has developed a strong emphasis on morals, values, school building, and nation building. The school community has come to appreciate, understand, and exemplify the motto led by Mrs. Rahman Singh: "Let's root for each other and watch each other grow." Mrs. Rahman Singh's vision and philosophy was always to create a cadre of 21st century citizens, future leaders, and mothers who would be the exemplars of our society.
Ladies and gentlemen, one person to whom an award was made this year is unavoidably absent. The Shakonia Medal Silver has been awarded to Mr. Ray Funk, retired judge in the sphere of culture and the arts. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of the investiture. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Major Paris. Thank you to our students for reading the biographies of our recipients, and thank you to Her Excellency for thinking about involving our youth in the national awards. And of course, a hearty congratulations to all the recipients. It is now my honor to introduce the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force Steel Orchestra. The Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force Steel Orchestra performed at the prestigious Royal Edinburgh Military Tattoo in Scotland in August of this year. There, they showcased the national instrument to the world as one of the most sought-after contingents of the military tattoo. The Defense Force Steel Orchestra has performed at the internationally acclaimed event from as early as 1997 and remains a crowd favorite, even winning the coveted Pooley Broadsword in 2014, which is awarded to the best performing contingent. Outside of the Royal Edinburgh Military Tattoo, the Defense Force Steel Orchestra has performed all over the world, including anniversary celebrations in Martinique, the Anzac Military Tattoo in Sydney, Australia, the World Steel Band Music Festival held in Madison Square Garden, New York, the Holland and Luxembourg International Tattoo, and the Basel International Tattoo in Switzerland, just to name a few. The Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force Steel Orchestra is the first and thus far only marching military steel orchestra in the world and remains an internationally recognizable gem of Trinidad and Tobago. Playing Together Right Here by Denise Plummer, Feel the Love by Freetown Collective, Mash Up by Blacks, and Nah Leaving by Denise Plummer, fresh from their historic performance on the first ever World Steel Band Day at the internationally renowned Edinburgh Military Tattoo in Scotland, I give you the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force Steel Orchestra.